I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. June 1st edition. Welcome, Katie Wataki, our editor, Lance Sexton. He's in an undisclosed location in Arkansas. Mike Rosman, CEO, founder, Bullfly. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
We were having technical issues, guys. Do we have that bad of an echo, or are we able to live with it?
No, it's better.
It sounds better.
It's better? Okay. Sorry about that. Please, wow, wait, look at the numbers. Thank you very much for your support. For those of you who are new to the Coleman Report live show, feel free to save these. That satisfies your regulators at SBA and what you are doing for training. And we have a bunch of poll questions, which we love to do. Are you still accepting PPP?
Well, there's still plenty of money out there, Bob, but I'm hearing a
Lance,
few
do you know
lenders,
how much is out there?
It's still close to $100 billion, Bob. It may be, it may be more.
Katie and Mike, do you have a better number? Oh, look at that.
I saw this morning, I know the SBA was publishing one last week, but that number might be off now. It's been over a week and a half since they published that.
You know, it's Bob. In the last week, it's more than 20 billion has been added back in the pot. So I think what we're seeing is this money's going to stick around.
Mm-hmm.
See, it was still around 100
Number
billion. And
have the protests and riots affected your customers? A little bit higher than I thought, Lance.
yeah, it really is. Of course, I'm in Arkansas, and my customers are in Arkansas, Texas, and Florida, and I'm sure there's some impact, but I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, well, I was working L.A. during the Rodney King riots, and that was not a pleasant situation. But the Rodney King riots were just localized to Los Angeles. I mean, this is nationwide. By the way, putting it in context, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too much, but we've had riots all throughout the 200 years of our democracies. So, I mean, this stuff comes and goes. Unfortunately, a lot of people get hurt, which is sad. Number 3, what location are you working out of? Are you still home? I got a text from a friend of mine who said it looks like their marriage is going to take because they've worked at home now together for about 3 months. They're still talking to each other. Wow. Okay. All right. That surprised any of you?
It really doesn't surprise me, Bob. Of course, as you shared with them, I'm working from an undisclosed location, but, you know, a lot of banks are starting to slowly migrate back to normal office situation, and some are taking their time. We are not open
Lance,
yet.
Yeah. Neither's Orange County. Lance, I forgot to ask this question. Let's assume that you have a customer who's impacted by the riots and they have a PPP loan. Can we get a disaster loan on top of a PPP loan?
Yes, they can apply for it. And in fact, many customers got the EIDL loans with the PPP loan.
Right.
So it's a separate event. So the answer is
what
yes.
About max? But what about limitations? Do the disaster amounts impact that maximum 3.7 million from 7A, or is it a separate calculation?
That is a very good question, Bob, because I am of the assumption when you look in E-Tran at a particular customer that has a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, they both show up in SBA systems. So I am expecting that those count for the $5 million maximum availability they have on a SBA.
Hello, Mr. Sexton. That man looks just like you, Lance.
Whoa, he does. Hey.
There he is. Finally, did you complete the 1502 reporting on time?
I hope the number's very high, Bob. The number should be extremely
Is there
high,
any type
Bob.
of grace period on this, Lance?
Uh,
All right, that's good.
I don't think SBA is not going to pay you because you didn't send it in by the 29th, but I anticipated the number to be above 85% because this is how we're getting paid our processing fee.
How you
And technically, Bob, if you submitted the 1502 report by the 29th and Colson Services accepted it, there were no errors, banks should start getting paid middle to the latter part of this week.
Hey, we want to give a shout out to Renee Bender. She's with the Senate Small Business Committee. She's been great to work with, and she's moving to Denver, Office of Rural Affairs. I believe that's with SBA. And Renee, we've enjoyed working with you, and best of luck in Denver. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide. Katie, what's going on?
I think Mike was going to cover this.
This is Mike.
Oh, Mike, I apologize.
No worries, Bob. No worries. So, yeah, this is something we've been hearing a lot of questions about where I think we heard this from Lance earlier that the banks went through the ringer trying to originate loans. They brought in their entire staff to work on it. When it comes to the actual forgiveness good faith review, they're looking for an outsourcing solution, and that's what we're going to talk about on Thursday at 2 o'clock for a webinar, a complimentary webinar that people can join. They can outsource the actual good faith review, thereby using their staff for more, beneficial tasks like originating new loans.
New loans, yeah.
Great. Anything else? How do they sign up for your webinar, Mike?
So I think, Joe, I think we'll be sharing the logins right at the bottom of the screen there, but everyone who's on this will get a link to register. Again, it's no cost. You guys are going to be, we'll be hosting it in partnership with you, Bob, and it's going to be a really easy way for people to understand their options and get started. I will highlight the fact the structure is a very good, strong price point. It's under $100 per application, and therefore I think, given the weight of that forgiveness review, it's going to be a lot of uptake.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. Has anybody heard, I mean, we're still waiting for some tweaks. Lance, Katie, or Mike, have you heard of when that's going to come down from SBA?
Well, the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act, Katie, I thought it was going to be later this week, right?
Yeah, the Flexibility Act, I think they anticipate trying to have the Senate discuss that later this week. I don't know if the riots and everything are going to push anything back. I don't know how DC is handling all of this. But I do think they're probably going to address that this week or as soon as possible.
Katie, we've asked Katie to give us an update of all the legislation. What's going on with the HEROES Act, Katie?
The HEROES Act passed a couple weeks ago, and so far that's also up for the Senate to look at that possibly this week or the coming week. Otherwise, there hasn't been any progress on that to report, unfortunately.
Do we think that's going to pass in the Senate, or is it dead on arrival?
I think probably the other pending legislation, the one that just passed, is probably a little higher chance of passing than the HEROES Act. There was a Senate act that was kind of opposing the HEROES Act at one point, and that's kind of fallen out. Nobody is addressing that act at all. So it looks like this one's probably going to get dismissed, and they're going to look more at the Flexibility Act.
Very good. Lance, one of your congressmen is getting involved. They sent a letter to Treasury working to streamline this a little bit more. Were you involved with that at all?
No, but I'm proud of him because he's trying to get streamlined forgiveness for the smaller SBA borrowers, which I think is appropriate. You're a person who got, in this second round of PPP, there were tons of sole proprietors, independent contractors. I saw PPP loans as small as $1,500. They should not have to go through a 13-page form and gathering all this information for a $1,500 loan to be forgiven. So French Hill, who's from the state of Arkansas, and Andy Barr, who's from Kentucky, are pushing for and trying to encourage a streamlined forgiveness process for smaller PPP loans. And I think if I were a congressperson, I'd be right with them.
Mike, I think we were talking, there's one out of Georgia, it was for a barber shop, it was what, $300? Is that, you understand?
I think our low water mark was $540, where we had a loan for $540. I think the loans we're processing at BoFly today, where we're getting those from our, more often than not, they're our franchisees and then matching them up with lenders. The average loan that last week was about $7,000, right? So, you know, the bank's not making any money on it. They're doing it for civic-minded reasons. BoFly's not making any money on it. We feel the same way. We're helping our clients, the franchisors, out. But the idea, to Lance's point of putting a heavy burden, I would even just say, let's be clear, putting a heavy burden on the bank to go ahead and do a good faith review and check supporting documents on a $540 transaction that they made, you know, 5 points on that $540. It's inappropriate, and it's probably, you know, the idea of correcting it makes sense. That being said, I think there's also a strong push in Congress to have a level of accountability. And so where this gets to be an interesting debate is, well, what's a small loan? Because if someone's getting $25,000 of Treasury's money, let's understand, are they responsible for verifying payroll? And there's going to be, I think there's a genuine debate about what that mark is going to be.
Katie, SB and Treasury have announced a $10 billion, these numbers are just astronomical, for CDFIs to participate in PPP. What's going on there?
Right. Well, there's several Congress members who really were pushing for this, and they finally got it last Thursday. Like you said, they're trying to, or they already got $10 billion for CDFIs. And the idea is to try to help, especially low-income and minority groups, get access to these funds right now.
Very good. We have a couple questions, Lance. Let's see. This is from Yvette. And we have a business owner that runs a pretty large landscaping business. He started paying them all in 2019 and then switched over to payroll. None of the employees have or apply separately as individuals and not 1099. So what do we do in this situation, Lance?
I'm not sure how they verified their payroll for the PPP amount, because your 1099 employees are supposed to apply for PPP loan themselves. This one is riddled with the possibility of unforgiveness is the concern that I have when I read this, because you've got somebody, the basis year for payroll, 2019, they were 1099 employees. Thus, those 1099 employees should have applied for a PPP loan. So I bet he can find somebody that'll do this, but I bet forgiveness will be quite a challenge.
Well, and I can add in, I'd like to add in there, Lance, I mean, maybe it's a follow-up question. If he then shifts from a 1099 structure to rehiring them by, you know, in short order, putting them back actually on payroll, would he be in a better position to get forgiveness?
I think if he moves the employees to W-2 status during 2020 and rehires those employees, he's got a better opportunity of forgiveness, absolutely. But the problem here is the basis of the PPP loan amount should have been the 2019 payroll, which were all 1099 employees. So Mike makes an excellent point. If he flips them all to W-2 employees, he's got a better than average chance of forgiveness. If they're still 1099, I don't think he's forgiven.
Hunt asked a great question. Someone paid off their PPP loan during Safe Harbor, but then they had second thoughts. Can they reapply?
You know, I used to would have gave a hard no on this one. A lot of it depends on how it was handled in the SBA system. For instance, if there is a PPP loan that an institution goes in and cancels it in the SBA system, you can, in fact, come back and get a PPP loan. If it's paid off, I'm not exactly sure how that's handled in the system. The only way to know is to try to put it in E-Tran and see if it gets a number. But again, those loans that were canceled prior to disbursement, a customer can come back and you can get them a PPP loan. This one's a little different. It sounds like it was dispersed and then paid off. So I'm not 100% sure. My personal inclination is I think it'll come up in E-Tran as already having a PPP loan.
So we have come across that. I would say the question's been raised before, and the answer we got was going to be unsatisfactory. Is, you know, you got your PPP loan and you're only entitled to one. But I think Lance's advice is right. Put it in E-Tran, see if you can get it, because if you can, then you're on solid ground.
Yeah, the main thing here is if a loan was canceled, like somebody had a PPP loan and it did not get dispersed, and the financial institution came in and canceled it in E-Tran, they can come back and they can get their loan. I've processed 2 or 3 that way. But if the loan was dispersed and then paid off, I agree with Mike. I think, you know, I would say put it in E-Tran and see, but you're probably going to come back with a borrower who already has a PPP loan.
But I'll add to that. It's very frustrating and this is where I think the shifting guidance, I think we've talked about this a couple times now. I think the SBA has done a really good job at responding to changes that were needed, but that shifting guidance has created a couple real problems for individual businesses, and here's one. Oh, let me quick and pay this off because I'm concerned I don't have safe harbor. Oh, now safe harbor's for $2 million and under. Let me go back and get my loan. Uh-oh, I already paid it off. So it's challenging.
And the last question we have is from Nathan. What if someone is on maternity leave during the 8 weeks? How do we account for that? What are the logistics?
There's a safe harbor in the full-time equivalency calculation that allows for something like maternity leave or unpaid leave in any circumstance where an employee requests and receives unpaid leave or requests a hour reduction or resigns. Those are all, I don't know if it's a safe harbor, but those are all exemptions to the full-time equivalency that you have to calculate for forgiveness. So in both of these cases, they're going to be okay.
Thank you. Here's the list of our upcoming webinars. Of course, the one this Thursday is with Bowfly. Lance, give a little preview of servicing your SBA PPP loans that we're going to do next week. Tell us what you're going to be talking about.
We're just going to try to share with you some best practices for servicing a PPP portfolio, and it's not greatly different than servicing any other SBA portfolio, other than the structure and the loan type is different.
Very good. Well, let's see. We have our summer training beginning July 1, and of course we have our data. Hey, everyone, thank you. Great turnout today. We appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
Can we go back to that slide with upcoming webinars? I just want to tell you guys how excited I am about June the 17th, Bob. It is a non-PPP webinar. Please sign up.
Very good. And I know you're going to talk about this because if SBA is supposed to be making payments, and how do we all of that mess, correct, Lance?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Bob. I look forward to that.
Well, thank you all much for joining us. Thank you for joining the Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Thank you.